Hello, and thank you to all for joining us, and welcome to Empathizing with Difficult Characters at LudoNarraCon 2025. I am going to make an opening statement, and then we'll have intros. So, a lot of games offer the power fantasy of characters bending to your will. But what if characters were actually real people? With real desires and perhaps with real flaws? What if they pushed back at you, disagreed with you, and don't do what you want, much like in real life? So, some of the best moments in interactive fiction come from truly understanding someone with a rough exterior and glimpsing their shared humanity. You love to hate them, and ultimately, you love to love them. Join us, the writers from 1000 Times Resist, Perfect Tides, and the upcoming Station to Station, Scarlet Hollow, and Slay the Princess, as we talk about writing our most standoffish yet ultimately human characters. My name is Remy Siu, the creative director at Sunset Visitor Studios, and I am moderating today. I also worked on a game called 1000 Times Resist. I'm also here to say that this is a spoiler-filled panel talk. For some games here, spoilers matter, maybe perhaps a little bit less, but this is your official spoiler warning. If you don't want to be spoiled for 1000 Times Resist, Perfect Tides, I don't want to be spoiled for Station to Station. I just want to say Scarlet Hollow and Slay the Princess. Please do leave now and maybe watch it later on YouTube. So that's the spoiler warning. Let's start off with some introductions. Maybe let's start with Meredith.
Hello, I'm Meredith Gran, a game developer for the last few years. I started out as a cartoonist and an animator, and my first game was Perfect Tides. It is a narrative point-and-click adventure about being a teenage girl in the year 2000. A lot of early internet, a lot of teen angst, and online friendships of the age. And right now I'm working on a sequel, Station to Station, which takes place in 2003, and that is out as soon as I possibly can manage.
Pinky.
Hi, I'm Pinky Lee. I'm narrative designer and writer at Sunset Visitor that released 1000 Times Resist last year. Maybe I'll let Remy give the little Cole's notes on that game in a bit.
No.
So I see how this panel is going to go.
That's why I'm moderating, so I don't have to do that bit. That's literally why.
All right, 1000 Times Resist is a sci-fi adventure game. Narrative-driven, takes place both from anywhere from 2019 to the far, far future. And you play as a clone, part of a society of other clones, all based off of a 17-year-old Asian Canadian who was the last remaining human when humanity was wiped out.
Maybe also a little bit more about yourself, Pinky.
My background is from the performing arts. I'm a dancer choreographer by training. I'm speaking to you on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I speak Cantonese fervently but terribly, and I'm very, very food-driven.
Nice. Tony, Abby?
We're Tony and Abby. We are Black Tabby Games, so we are co-creators. Tony is the lead developer, and I am the lead artist, and we're co-writers on both of our projects.
Those projects are Slay the Princess, which, if you're watching this panel, you probably have heard of, and Scarlet Hollow, which, if you're watching this panel, you might have heard of, but less likely that you'd have heard of it.
But you should play it.
Yeah. Our work really focuses on player agency and kind of exploring decision spaces in the framework of text-based adventures and visual novels, usually with light role-playing elements. Abby has an interesting work background before getting into games, and I have a boring work background, so I'll let her talk and keep my own story mysterious.
I, like Meredith, started out in comics, so I was a cartoonist for close to a decade before kind of shifting over to graphic novel. That was what I was doing before shifting over to games. So it's like surprisingly similar, so the shift was not so bad, and I've really enjoyed it a lot. Though I do miss linear narratives that just go in one direction.
Do you?
Well, okay, I would miss this if I weren't doing this, because that's how it always goes. You always miss what you're not doing, right? So, yeah. But for now, thick in the soup of having to, like, simplify. I'm making the art book for Slay the Princess right now, and having to simplify a branching narrative like that into an art book, it's very complicated. So yeah, I missed being able to write a story and it goes one direction and then it's over. And I get to decide what the ending is. Anyway.
I meant it when I said I was going to keep my background mysterious. It's not very interesting.
Ooh,
it's more interesting.
Maybe it will come out later.
Maybe.
So I guess our first question is,
Wait, did you already tell us about you?
Yeah, I gave that introduction at the beginning, so
I see.
that's all I'm going to say.
That's all you're going to say. Staying mysterious. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. When you think about difficult characters in your games, what do you think about and why? Maybe let's start... who do you think about and why? Let's start with Tony and Abby, and then, of course, everybody can just feel free to jump in.
I mean, it would probably be Tabitha from Scarlet Hollow. I think that is probably our most off-putting character, and yet she is also highly beloved in the community and by us.
Yeah, Dr. Kelly, too.
And Tabitha, for an intro, is your cousin, one of the first people you meet in town, who invited you into the story, basically. So the first person you meet is someone who is very unhappy to see you.
Yeah, she's also what people who spend too much time on the internet might describe as a girl failure. Which is a pretty solid archetype for that sort of rough yet relatable character. Someone who's messy, someone who's mean, raw in some ways, guarded in others, and kind of like a cat. You feel really, really good if you get like the simplest bit of affection.
And that is kind of like a big part of writing difficult characters, I think, is a lot of people, when faced with that, they see it as a challenge. Like, there's a reason that people kind of get attached to people and say, I can fix them. It's because they want to draw out that one little bit of kindness from that person, that one little bit of attention, because it means that they've, like, conquered something. It's too easy if it's from someone who's just nice.
Meredith?
Yeah, I didn't realize we were talking about difficult characters. My character is perfect, and there's really nothing wrong with her. But since I'm on the panel, the protagonist of my game, Mara Whitefish, she is a character who you are sort of forced to be. There's nobody else that you can be in this game, and if you don't want to be her, then you have to put the game down. She is very obsessive and in her own world. She very often misinterprets things that seem very obvious to us, are not intended as any sort of slight towards her, but she seems unable to take it any other way. She lashes out at people who are offering her help. Just generally because of the way her mind works and the environment she's grown up in, is unable to take things at face value and is unable to give and receive love in the way that she wants to at this stage in her life. And, I think with a character like this, we are her, and we recognize right away that she wants to have relationships with other people. She wants to be understood. But it's out of reach in the way that I think, regardless of how we are, it is out of reach for all of us. That all of us feel alienated from other people for one reason or another, and hopefully these are things that we overcome as we mature, as we get out of our own heads. But Mara is almost cartoonishly still in her head and immature, and I think people hate to be her because they see themselves there, and people like to be her because they want to see her move past that. And perhaps through the course of the story, we see a little bit of hope that maybe she will.
I guess I'll jump in. I was recently at a talk where it was described that every character in 1000 Times Resist is the epitome of girl failure. Like the entire cast of 1000 Times Resist is girl failure, and that checks out for me. I guess when you asked, Remy, I immediately thought of Knower. And so Knower is one of the sisters, and perhaps the most what would be the word for it? I guess like one could argue problematic, but one could also say like she's someone who ends up batting for both teams. She's someone who code switches and shape shifts depending on what is necessary, and she goes to great lengths to uphold what she sees to be necessary for things to continue. And I think that she's got a real high tolerance for the intolerable. And so she's pretty evil. And I think in some ways...
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, in fact, okay, there's a couple things. She's also Remy's favorite character because Remy's also very Knower-y. And so...
I see.
So that's why he also responded like that, actually, because...
Sure.
They have a lot in common. Does what needs to be done and is like not gonna boohoo about it, and I think has a very like eldest sister complex in that she's seen it all. So like overwhelming expressivity or reactivity for her, like she's over it, she's just seen too much and she can't be bothered. And so there's something about, I just noticed that it says your name behind you, Remy. That's pretty silly.
Natalie Flores gave this to me, that's why I put
it's
it
really
there.
good.
Just in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I knew. All to say,
sure does.
I think just is hard to understand on the surface, and is pretty unwavering and unmoved in an unmooring way, and that I feel like that's pretty fucked up.
So I mean, following up on this, like when you're writing these characters who are, we would say are difficult or not your perhaps traditional quote unquote heroic archetypes, are you aware of trying to strike a balance here? Like, are you ever worried that people will pull back and be like, okay, yeah, that was too much for this character? Or do you really lean in at certain points? Or are there moments where you remember feeling that and you really leaned in? Maybe we'll start with Meredith.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think she often is too much for people. And I do hear from people who will acknowledge the quality of the story, but feel that the scenarios are just too close to them and in a way that bothers them, and they feel that they're unable to play it because that's not what they were looking for when they played the game. But as far as like what I'm looking for when I try to balance the character is whether I feel it's truthful to the character in a way that other people are going to be able to understand. And that means that it occasionally does go into the realm of things that are just like sort of unbearable to people, that cause them pain. But I feel that like as long as I'm being truthful to the character and presenting that in a way that I feel is brings people in and does not alienate, then to me it's okay. I don't try to restrain myself beyond that.
Was there a moment in particular where you were thinking at any point, or were you just like the whole time like, yeah, I can just be honest and I'm comfortable with that?
I won't give anything away about the new game, but I definitely think about it more now that Mara is older. In the first game, she's 15, 16, and now she is 18, 19, and she's a bit more responsible for her own choices now. And I feel like I did not think about that as much when she was much younger, because I feel like at 15 and 16, as painful as those memories are, they are more forgivable from somebody who is who can be held less responsible for their choices. But the older she gets, the more I am considering whether I'm still presenting people with a character that they can understand.
Nice. And Tony and Abby.
It was so satisfying. I felt that Mara actually felt like a complete character in that way, of just, she wasn't softened. It wasn't just like an idealized portrait of kind of a 15 or 16-year-old who's like going through some difficult stuff and having a hard time connecting with people. In that way, it felt just like so much more uncomfortable in a really interesting way. So I appreciated it.
And I feel like ultimately you can't really start playing the game of anticipating audience reactions and like, oh, will this be too much for them or will this be too little? I know for the first couple episodes of Scarlet Hollow, like, we were a lot more mindful of that than we are now, and we kept running into scenarios where it's like we would perfectly try and fine-tune, say, like a reaction from Tabitha to be the exact right amount of hateable, and then just like people would either be upset about something we hadn't even thought about, or like they would just blow past the goalposts and not care, to the point where it's like there's some stuff where we have this character do monstrous things. She's terrible to you. She's like
she's constantly talking shit about other people.
Yeah, she's a coal baron who violates like labor laws and standards all the time and is in the process of trying to break a strike in the game. And I guess it's like sections of our fandom just keyed in so hard on I really need this character to like me that like
they will forgive
it doesn't
her
matter
all.
what she does.
They will defend her to the ends of the earth, and they're like, it's okay, we'll figure out the strike thing later.
Yeah.
But for now, they shouldn't be so mean to her.
She's
like,
working really hard. She said to me that running a coal mine is really hard and the workers don't understand. And it's like...
A big thing I've learned from writing this sort of thing is that people will sometimes just believe a character when they say something.
Yes.
To the ends of the earth. And they're like, well, they said it. So why would... She said that she's overworked. And I believe her, and I love her the most. So
and that's a true reality for her, cruel. Right? But like, there is also a thing where I was talking to Remy about this earlier today, where there's this thing we measured in our games, where people are so receptive to the last thing that they've been told, or the thing they've been told the most. So the example I was telling Remy is in episode 3 of Scarlet Hollow. Every episode in the game has like a big and a sort of binary decision. Sometimes there's other branches, but it's this or that. And that something we learned was people like were super biased towards picking essentially whatever they've been pressured by another character into picking, or whatever the last thing mentioned to them is.
Even if it's not a trustworthy character. There's a character in particular, Sybil, where a lot of people don't trust her reasonably. And she says... Don't do it. Don't take the thing that this ghost is telling you to do.
Wait, no, she says do it.
Don't do it to you, and then says do it to Tabitha, and then you can sacrifice.
But she says someone anyway, should like take this deal, right?
Yeah.
And despite the fact that people like don't trust her character, like 70% of the people who are told that by her wind up just agreeing with her. And then there's another mirrored version of the sequence where another character can show up
who's been stalking you and is like half rotten. It's like, don't do it. We're
he's like, do the opposite option, right?
70% of people on that run go with him. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Neither one of those characters is particularly trustworthy, but people still are like, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But as for like a balance, I also I really particularly love writing Tabitha's cruelest lines. There are some things that she says about like the people in town, and I just think to myself, wow, what would my evil grandmother say? I know this is like cutting to the core of this person, and like she never uses people's names. It's just kind of fun, you know, to write someone that mean.
Take the librarian, for instance, she says, of a man whose life she just destroyed.
Yeah.
Let me dunk on him a bit. But I guess there's like an emotional rawness that people read also as honest. So even if it's really nasty, it's favorable. And I think that there's another layer to it, too, where you're looking at games as a medium versus other types of storytelling where, like, people are used to sort of sycophantic companion characters. They're used to games being some sort of power fantasy or wish fulfillment. So they're still like in this zone where when they're immersed as role-playing in a game, a character who is emotionally raw, even if mean, well, they have to be likable, and I have to view this through a positive lens because I get along with characters in games.
Yeah, and there's also, with Tabitha, and mean characters in particular, like, not all of them. There are some people who are just cruel for cruelness' sake, but for a really compelling character like this, in our game at least, understanding why they do it, of just kind of, it's betraying a vulnerability when they say these nasty, horrible little things and do these horrible things, of just, like, they feel like they're being attacked, and so they're lashing out. So understanding what they might lash out about, like in particular the line about the librarian that we mentioned earlier, is Tabitha wanted a kid and is like not able to have one as far as she knows, like it hasn't happened yet, but he had one when he was very young, and so she basically just says he should never have had that kid, he couldn't handle it, like she's a huge asshole about it because it's a sore spot for her of just she feels like she should have had that. So
yeah, people have a hard time drawing a distinction, I think, between understanding the reason for someone's actions and taking that reason as a valid excuse for that behavior.
Yeah, like she still shouldn't have said it. She should understand that this is a personal problem, and she shouldn't, after a man like nearly loses his daughter in an accident, just like then talk about how he never should have had this kid and it's all his fault. So yeah.
But that would be no fun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If she actually understood herself, she wouldn't be in this situation.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like if characters really understand themselves. Like I hear a lot of kind of, if only these characters had gone to therapy. And I'm like, well, one, that requires them to be vulnerable enough to understand that they need it. And two, receptive enough to have it actually change them meaningfully instead of just give them new fun defense mechanisms that they can use against other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think fun is kind of the key word there. And it does make me wonder if these were linear stories like we used to tell, would people be enjoy exploring why they're like this, or would they pass judgment more harshly?
I think that's true. I think they would probably hate the characters more if they didn't have a chance to try to like get in through the cracks and figure out why they're being so cruel and defensive.
And yet, you know, on the flip side, anytime I see something with Aubrey Plaza in it, she plays a monster, and that monster is my favorite character. So,
And why is that? Can you discern why that is?
I think mean characters are fun. I think sometimes, like, there is an honesty that comes from meanness. And I think that honesty is sometimes reflective of ways we wish we could be, but we feel too constrained to be that way in our day-to-day lives.
So, Pinky, is there any thoughts that you have in regards to, say, how this played out with Iris or the mom?
Regarding balance?
Oh, regarding, sorry, just immediately, like, yeah, sure, balance, but then also some of the things that we...
Yeah, I what's funny is two things. Lots of what you guys all just said resonated for me. I don't think we spent very, like, zero time in the writer's room thinking about whether these characters would be likable. When we started playtesting, we did ask, like, who is your favorite sister and who are you drawn to? And we were always quite surprised. When we were writing Iris, the idea is that she would be terrible. And so the project was make her terrible and make this terrible cumulative and make it and it was already complicated because she is a teenager and she will accrue more control and power than any teenager, any person should ever have. And so there's like the circumstances that make her badness badder, and then there's just who she is. I think there's a couple things. I'm just reflecting on how when we were writing, we were often either sourcing ourselves or people that we know and friends of ours, and seeing like and I think I've shared about this before, not in this conversation, but perhaps in other conversations, just that I was always writing under the impression that everyone was the villain, and that every villain would be three-dimensional enough that I could see myself in them. And so that there had to be a truthfulness. If I could believe that I would do those things under these conditions and these circumstances, then I could buy it and I could write it honestly. And then just the piece about, I think if everyone's just earnest and saying what they mean and going to therapy and having solved all of their problems, I just don't know what kind of like interesting tension, interesting dynamics, and there's just no energy there. There's to move things along, like, and so I think
you need that rawness.
Truly.
I started playing 1,000 Times Resist on my own when it came out. And the moment where I put the game down and then went into the studio where Abby was working and was like, okay, no, you have to play this, was when Iris microwaves her hamster. And it was just like, that is such a fucked up
content warning for pet death. The belated content warning.
It's like a place where...
Yeah. We'll have Spencer add the content warning 5 seconds before you say that, and then they'll experience this.
But it was the sort of thing that was just like, wow, this is a horrible yet stunningly earnest depiction of this character. And that was the moment where I was just like, I'm going to do this in 2 sittings. That I kept thinking the game wasn't quite going to be as long as it was. So it was 8 hours, have to sleep. All right, 8 hours the next day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
Cool. Yeah. And then maybe what I will say is, when I think about 1,000 Times Resist, it helped that we had kind of like a core Sailor Scouts team, because they balanced each other out. And so everyone could be just very, very fully themselves and other characters would kind of mirror back to them what they were and what they lacked.
So I'm going to pick up something that maybe we're already talking about, and this is maybe where we'll discover Tony's mysterious past. Is when, very much these are us writing these characters, and so this is somewhat inevitable. But how much of yourself do you see in these characters, and where do you see yourself come out the most in these characters? I've already been outed, so yeah, this is my revenge.
Well, I do know that I keep writing mean women constantly, and I honestly don't know what that says about me.
I don't think you're a mean woman. I think you're an enjoyer of mean women.
And also, I've known, when I brought up my evil grandmother before, Grandma Flowers, there is actually a character in Scarlet Hollow that's fully based on her. But at the same time, I have an empathy for her. She was an evil woman, but she also, she grew up very poor in Mississippi, dirt floors. She had a very difficult life, and then was one of many siblings and married pretty young to a man who was also wildly cruel. So just kind of, she was then taking it out on everyone else, basically, and constantly needed somebody else to hurt because she was feeling so bad. So understanding that that's where they're coming from, that they are dealing with sacrifices that they believe that they are making for themselves, and then expect others to take on those sacrifices as well, like they did. And to just grin and bear it and deal with it. And so, take out their aggression on the dog or whatever. So just understanding that is how a person becomes that kind of sour human being. That there is a humanity there. It's not a comfortable humanity, and it's not one that can be fixed. It is a person, and you have to understand that some people are going to be like that. And to understand that means that then you can write it and to empathize with it, even though you may think to yourself, I don't want to talk to her anymore. And it's all right. She's dead. I don't have to worry about not calling her anymore. So
yeah, and because Remy sniped me specifically here, I do think with Tabitha there's a component with how she talks about the way she runs her business and the financial realities that she's burdened with. That does pull me back to there were a couple of years where some friends and I decided to do our own tech company, and we were building like volunteer organizing software for nonprofits. And we went into that direction because we were very starry-eyed and idealistic, but then we kind of kept hitting walls where the idealism would run up against the financial reality of the world we chose to work in. You know, nonprofits are your customers. They don't have a lot of money. There were concerns from like some of my co-founders who like didn't want to, you know, support larger organizations that had more money because of various qualms they had. So I think there is a degree from me when I go into that character of, okay, yeah, we want like to do better here. We want to make something that like works for this vision. But also, can we talk about the reality of we're going to run out of money in 2 months if we don't make money? And ultimately, that wasn't something we were able to address, which is part of the reason I'm making games now.
Well, we all went on that one. So
Yeah, lucky us. Thanks, nonprofits.
That's very germane though. Like that you came from a tech business background when, you know, what we're all trying not to think of these games as a product or as a piece of software. Yeah. We really want to see the human part of it all, but nobody will ever play them unless we see them in that light. So I think it's quite right for you to jump from one to the other to try and pull the art aspect out of what you understand to be a product. You know, we all need a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, marketer guy. Thank
I
you.
do other stuff too.
You're also an artist.
I do a lot of writing and game design, I promise.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Meredith, I mean, it's quite, you know, how much of Mara is you, how much of the family, Mara's family, is your family. Yeah.
I mean, it's all of it. I mean, I don't think I really even try to hide that this is a largely autobiographical story. It's, I guess, kind of in the autofiction genre. I get to say that all of this is the truth without actually any of it needing to be real, if that makes sense. That's generally how I respond when people ask me if it's reality. None of these things happen, but they're the truth. And every feeling that is synthesized in this game was felt by me in a way that, you know, are in differing levels of literally, you know, in terms of my own experiences. But it's, you know, I guess like it's a little bit like writing my dead grandmother in that this person is gone. I can't bring this person back, and in a lot of ways, I am pilfering her grave because she cannot respond to, you know, whether or not I have been honest with her. But you know, I enjoy the benefit of also being her and retaining some of what she was, and in visiting her through this writing, I am able to express my own frustration with her, to express how pissed off I am and make her suffer in ways that, like, you know, she did suffer, but like I kind of feel like she deserved to. And at the same time, I, you know, through writing, you know, the choice to write comes from this, but also through writing, I find that I am able to forgive her and understand better why she did those things. And I think Yeah, I'd love to hear what you all think about this, but I think in general, teenagers are not well written in fiction, and I think a big reason for that is that we as adults, people who went into creative, solitary jobs, are trying to forget who that person was as much as possible, and trying to move on from that, and either distance themselves and say this was a completely different person, or reinvent the story of what they were into something that doesn't cause them pain. And I think it's actually worth all of our time to struggle through the reality of what that all was. So that's the character is very real to me, and I take full advantage of that when I'm writing her.
It's like burning an effigy of yourself.
So well said. Pilfering the grave. That's yeah, I wrote down none of these things happen, but they're the truth. I really like that a lot. I feel like that might sum it up, or sum up maybe my response to this question, that it all I'm maybe coming to conclude that as a writer, maybe auto fiction is my only genre, like it's my only way in, that I don't think ideas, I largely as a human feel feelings, and then I move from that place. If you looked at my Myers-Briggs, it would give it all away. But listening to you all speak, I was just clocking that in a lot of ways, I wrote down catharsis. I feel like that kind of working through things I am unable to work through in life. Storytelling, great space for it, great like holding. It's got shape. You can put it down. You can remove yourself safely and then return to it when you're ready for it. But this game allowed me a lot of not necessarily catharsis, but like space to parse a lot of the weight and guilt and complex feelings I have about Hong Kong and about Hong Kong post 2019. I also have had a very complicated relationship with my mother, and I've fed all of that through the 1000 Times Resist pipeline. And in a lot of ways, because I've spent the last 5 years kind of understanding the violence I have done to her, and the violence we've done to each other, I think that it really, really helped. I'm just thinking about that conversation with Iris Allmother and her mother at the tail end of the game, writing in ways where I'm just like, there's just actually no answers to any of my questions that I have. Like everything is just fraught and raw. And when I'm writing, if I'm feeling fraught and raw, I just know it's the real deal. I know that I'm in the question. I'm not coming with solutions, because I actually don't really have any solutions, and I don't have anything to conclude about being alive. But it's just that
Do any of us?
Yeah, there is no perfection, right?
Yeah,
We're all
truly.
just trying.
Yeah, we're all just trying, and some of us like trying terribly, and failing terribly, and that our tryings are getting in the way of other things, and just. The luxury of writing for 1000 Times Resist was that everyone's just a bit messy, and we're all failing regardless of intention. Regardless of good intention, our baggage and our history just follows us like ghosts, and we just can't shake off who we are. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Yes, self, right, true. Conjoined twins. Mothers.
So this may be the last question, or one of the last questions. Do you think there's anything specific about video games, especially since we've all kind of come from, different mediums, whether it's from graphic novel or comics or performing arts or the tech world, that allows these characters to flourish in a way that you didn't have in your kind of previous place of where you're coming from, or a way that the medium that you've discovered as you're working, the way the medium provides like perhaps a new angle into these characters that you didn't have formally a way access to before. Maybe I will start with Tony and
I'll
Abby.
go, sure.
Yeah.
I think that the best media in general is multidimensional, right? It's something where by looking at something that in your day-to-day you might be stuck in this pattern where you can only see it head on, you're able to look at it from all of these different angles and perspectives and see, a greater picture of what the shape of the things you engage with actually are. And what I think is really compelling about games as a medium is that you're able to fit so many perspectives into a small space. This is something that, specifically with our focus on choice and branching narratives, I think is like extra true of our games, where it's like you can finish it, replay it, make entirely different decisions, and see completely different things that are still ultimately just new perspectives on the same shape, and ultimately come away with a lot more understanding because of that. Like, I think you can play through all of Slay the Princess twice without seeing like any repeat content aside from chapter 1. And there are people who, I've seen the Steam reviews, some people have like 900 hours in Scarlet Hollow because they're just playing the same story with different choices, and it's different enough that they get a new perspective on a character. And sometimes within these systems, it's not just you're seeing a different side of someone, but you're seeing different ways that they're able to change under different circumstances. And that's when you can start to really get at like the soul of who someone is.
Yeah, the interactivity, I feel, makes you understand why they are the way they are in some capacity, at least, because you can see the way that they react to other people, and you can then choose to take certain actions that might help to change them because you're better understanding this person. Whereas presented in kind of like a flat linear place, there is only one angle that you can see someone from. There is no exploration, there is no three-dimensionality that you don't write in there yourself. And then that becomes a focus. Having people having to choose to focus means that they feel like they are kind of unwinding something versus being just told something. So I think it just feels a little different. It feels a little bit more like you can understand it.
Yeah, and like, what does it say about a character when you see them succumb to the worst parts of themselves, when you already have the knowledge that there is a spark of redemption in them, and in a completely different scenario that would have come out. It adds so much more depth to the fall if you're able to see kind of the return to grace somewhere else.
Meredith. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming from comics, I think that what when I first published Perfect Tides and got the reaction, I think I was pretty blown away, and I realized that the depth with which I would like to engage with an audience had not yet been reached from 10 years of comics. And I'm glad for the time I spent in that form, but I don't know that I'm ever going to get what I really want from it ever again. The ways in which people engage with games, obviously when they're given choices, that really helps and broadens their reactions. But even if you give them the illusion of choice, it can hit more profoundly, just because they feel like they did it. The way if somebody hits your car, you say, they hit me. When somebody hurts Mara's feelings, they have personally hurt you. And I did not know that I could simulate that sort of thing until I produced a game. So yeah, I don't know. I know it is possible to evoke strong feelings from other media. But for me right now, games is the thing because what Tony has described is like people being able to examine facets of an idea. I don't know that that's possible in another medium.
Yeah, jumping off of that, Remy and I have been really quite blown away and really moved by the reception and words that have been written in response to 1000 Times Resist. And coming from weird experimental multidisciplinary performance and dance, what people like to call interpretive dance, which is quite largely interpretive. Something about games, two things. There are words, and so words just convey things very, very clearly in ways.
You sure about that? No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
There might be some without, but largely there's a lot of dance without words, and so there's a certain kind of efficacy of storytelling that can take place. There's a certain efficacy of immersion. Like, in order to make you forget that you're sitting in a black box theater, that's very difficult, and it costs a lot of money, and it's you're tackling a lot of access needs and a lot of sensorial input output. The duration that games have for immersion, if you're sitting in a theater, you probably, aside from our very good friend who made a game turned theater show that is 7 hours long, generally when you're in a theater, you're there for 90 minutes tops, and by the 60-minute mark you're a little bit annoyed and you're hungry and you want to cough and you want to stand up and it's uncomfortable. But the fact that games take so long and you can take it at your own pace, I do think that there's just a certain kind of intimacy and relationship that can really happen. All of this, as you say, the interactivity, the ups and downs, the putting it down and be like, oh, the hamster just got. You can, I have not found that in my dance making experience.
It's kind of, Abby and I talk about the length of games a lot, in that it's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome, right? You're keeping someone captive for so long that they have to start
to love
seeing
you
things from your perspective. They have to love you.
Yeah.
They.
There was also, I think, I wanted to add this. In different kinds of storytelling, it's you can kind of feel the author there, showing you a series of pictures, being think about this. What about this? Whereas if you are the player, you feel you are the author and you are deciding how this story is going to go, even if it is a linear story, because you're in the driver's seat. It's you are actually experiencing this and it's your story. And interesting.
And I think that there's a really compelling thing for us to take away as creatives there. Because I feel compared to other mediums, you have to be so much more mindful about what your audience is going to think at a point in time. What are they going to want to do that you can't let them do, or you have to find a way to work into it? How do you account for the fact that even in the most linear narrative possible, players are entirely in charge of the pacing of the story. So you have to really put yourselves in their shoes, right? Someone who runs around the orchard and talks to everyone every time has a different temporal experience of 1000 Times Resist compared to someone who just goes to the marker to go to the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then thinking back to what this panel was about, I think even engaging with the difficult, complicated, messy, ugly characters in that space, again, either you are playing that character, you're embodying that character, or you are interfacing with them at your own pace, out of your own agency. And I think that just creates a lot more empathetic space for one to understand people like that, or characters like that.
Okay. One last question, and you can answer in a yes or no. Do people change?
Yes.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah. A little bit. They change a bit. Not a lot, but they do.
They can.
That's not a yes or no. No, I'm kidding.
You gave us the option. I've been doing a lot of like listening to Jim Bro science around neuroplasticity, and so I'm just like thinking about what it takes to want to shift who you are and how and your behavior, and that it's chemically and cognitively possible, but it requires a desire to do so.
And yet, like once every 7 years, you've performed a full ship of Theseus on yourself, even if you're doing nothing.
Yeah, I feel
I think
lose
it's
and
baked
gain
in.
every day.
Yeah.
Every day I lose a little bit of something, but something else grows, you know?
So this was an optimistic talk after all. So thank you all for being here, and that's Empathizing with Difficult Characters at LudoNarraCon 2025. I want everybody to quickly say where you can be found on the internet and perhaps plug something. Tony,
You can't find me anymore. I'm just on
Okay.
Tumblr. So
Blue Sky, Tumblr.
Nice.
The best place to find us is our Discord server, which you can find in our bio on Blue Sky or Twitter, which is a dead platform for us. Play Scarlet Hollow and Slay the Princess. They're both on sale while this talk is live. You can buy a bundle where there's an extra 15% off. You can also get a bundle of Scarlet Hollow and Perfect Tides for an extra 10% off. A bundle of Slay the Princess and 1,000 Times Resist for an extra 10% off.
yeah, just go to our bundles
And
page.
Just bundle.
keep
Yeah,
an
just go
eye
to
on
their
us
store.
for what we have coming after Scarlet Hollow's done, because it'll knock your socks off.
Wow.
What a plug!
Yeah, coming out with the game 3, huh? Anyway,
People have to know.
we've talked long enough.
Meredith.
meredithgrand.com is my website, and also my Blue Sky handle. You can find everything there.
I'm on Instagram.
Also, wishlist Station to Station on Steam.
Yeah, wishlist
Oh,
station
yeah.
to station, everybody.
No
Yeah.
It's
spoilers.
really good.
I'm cooking. It's good stuff.
Yes, it is.
We're on all the bits, and you can find me on Instagram at pinky_yinky.
You can find us at sunsetvisitor.studio on Blue Sky, and myself at remysu.com on Blue Sky. So one more time, Perfect Tides, Scarlet Hollow, Slay the Princess, 1,000 Times Resist. These are all on sale at LudoNarraCon, I think. And you can get them in all these types of bundles. So, and also Station to Station, please wishlist. There's probably a demo up right
There
now
is a
that
demo,
you can play.
yes.
Yes. So
Demo's
please check
really
that
good.
out. Yes,
I've played
demo
the
is very
first
good.
quarter of the game, and it's phenomenal.
This is why I didn't want any spoilers. So, but thank you all for coming. Thank you all for tuning in. And that is us signing off.
Thanks, Remy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.